see what's going on.
This meeting is being recorded.
Okay.
Observation is the process of looking to see what's going on. This comes up in two contexts. I usually think of it as happening during the processes of discovery, where you're finding out what's happening in the process you're going to observe, or in a process you're going to make if something does not happen, is not happening already. The other context it comes in is for data collection, which is once you've figured out what's going on now, then you have to gather data on every aspect of it to characterize the process with data. Once you already have a process, testing and then observing the results is also a form of observation. So that those are the contexts for it. There are a number of methods you can use for it. This article was from July 17th of 2017. It's on my blog. You can search for observation, and this is one of the articles you'll come up with. So there are a number of ways to do this. One is by walkthroughs. So if you have an already existing process, you simply follow the process from wherever things come into it, and follow the process through every processing step, and then go to where all the outputs are. For example, I used to do this for paper mills. Whenever I got to a new one, I go to where the chips or the logs came in and follow the process all the way through the end. Often I would have the drawings on C or D size paper, and see if what I was seeing matched the drawing, and that would give me a context to understand what was happening. If it was a situation where I didn't have drawings, I would take notes and make my own. I'd make flow charts and so on. And these can be guided and unguided. If you have an SME that knows the process and you're coming into an organization from the outside, we were always, I always worked for vendors and external analysis outfits that consulted with larger organizations. So many times we receive guided tours of the process, but a lot of times I just had to figure out what was going on by going to look at it. And I had to tease apart the process and document it in. There are times when organizations don't even fully grasp everything they're doing, and not one person can tell you the full sweep of everything that's happening. So that's always an important. Again, there are all kinds of documentation you can look at. Drawings are a big one. One of my companies had a ton of drawings for systems they'd installed, but drawings come out for individual pieces of equipment to understand their parameters. So you cannot walk around and see all the pipes in a working nuclear power plant for obvious reasons, but you can look at drawings and those things are documented like crazy. You can do internet research, many kinds of research to find documentation, descriptions, pictures, and so on. You can do electronic data collection, so processes that have instrumentation can be record all kinds of data, and sometimes they're entered in by hand by different participants, either people just taking notes or people typing stuff in as part of the process. Anything a system will save is data that can be analyzed later. Many physical systems have electronic sensors that measure every possible parameter you can imagine. My favorite unit of measure ever is an empirical measure called Canadian Standard Freeness, which has to do with how fast a pulp sample will drain, and that tells you a lot about its makeup and so on. It's right up there with Barnes and Barleycorns per fortnight. You've also got historical data that might come from any place. For example, looking at genealogical records gives you a lot of demographic information about populations, lifespans, causes of death, marriage patterns, and so on. And you'll often find those in church records. So there are an almost infinite number of ways to gather historical and electronic data. For visual observation, obviously, you can just take notes, you can keep log sheets, you can make checklists, and you can also have mobile apps that we've specifically developed to keep track of the data that we're interested in for any given situation or application. And maybe they're time stamped, and maybe you're just saying, hey, over this period of time, we got this much of each of these kind of things. Sometimes you'll collect many different aspects of information for each different item you're observing. For example, when we did border crossings, collecting data for them, we'd write down what color the car was, where its passengers were from, what their citizenship was, where they were referred to for the next phase of the process, because there might be many different alternative locations they could go to. There are many things that can be observed. Interviews are a very big thing. Talking to SMEs and really getting down to the nitty gritty of what's happening. One thing I really love to do for these is do a voice recording of the interview. And even better than that, to maintain the interviewee's privacy, what I'll ask them questions, have them give me answers, and I'll voice record the notes. It worked better when I could talk like a normal human, and then I would transcribe the notes later. So that allowed me to very quickly glean a lot of information I could write down. Surveys are also very important. You can ask many different participants in many different roles, all kinds of questions about what's going on. Every time I gave a public presentation, I had a little survey I gave that had like 5 different questions about what business analysts do, their favorite tools and techniques, and so on. And so those are placed elsewhere on my website. Video monitoring is very interesting because you can stop, back up, rewatch, and you can really get timestamps to see what's going on, and you can count the number of occurrences, start and stop times, so you can log how long each event took. If that's of interest, you can look at a lot of different causes and effects. Looking at pictures, taking a lot of pictures helps you more with discovery than data collection. That gives you the context of everything that's happening. You can use pictures that other people have provided for you. It's really good if you can take pictures on your own, and it will serve as a reminder of everything that's happening. Also, if you have equipment, manuals and specs that tells you everything that's going on, how fast, what the volumes and sizes are, and so on. For a lot of electronic and computer and user applications, that may not matter so much, but for other processes, that could be a big deal. Document review and capture, very, very important. There's another technique which is actually document analysis, so that is closely related to this. Calculations, a lot of times you might know what's happening upstream and downstream of a process, but you don't know what's happening in a given process because it cannot be measured or directly observed. So what you can do if you understand what's logically happening, you can do calculations. You can also figure out rate calculations from counts and time periods, figure out some governing parameters of a given process, and especially find out what limits are. Like, this is the most things you can process in a given span of time, and that's important information. Also, research is a combination of all those methods, and you can have policies and procedures, and that really goes into describing not so much of what happens, but when you get to a certain situation, how do you make a decision? So that's really what drives that. Although sometimes it will describe the entire process you're supposed to use. For example, the Naval Aviation Maintenance Program, they publish this online, and it's one the entire maintenance and deployment process for Navy and Marine Corps aircraft, and it has all the codes and everything you're supposed to do to run the process. And that's a great starting point for any analysis. Again, I said I started off by saying, well, no, this is different. So you're looking at both qualitative and quantitative types of data. Qualitative is mostly about what's going on, and qualitative is numeric or other aspects of it. They can be enumerated like colors or citizenship or whatever. So those are the ones I could think of. If you can think of anything more, I'd love to hear about them and extend this article. And that's it for that.
Very nicely done. Okay. Ilya, would you like to take the next one? Let's
Yes.
see, you volunteered for use cases and user stories. You want to just do one after the other since they're so similar?
Yep. Taking
Okay.
over. Can you guys see my
I can tell you're presenting, but I can't see your screen
okay,
yet.
okay. Can you see it now?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay, so let me go to presentation mode. Okay, so use cases and scenarios. By the definition in the BABOK, and that's how we also using it in my organization. This starts from graphical representation of the high-level user system interaction. Usually there are actors, which are outside the system. There is a system, and there are the use cases, basically the functional requirements, that interactions between the user and the system. The actors can actually also be a system, another system. So it could be system-to-system interactions, use cases, or users to the system. The use cases can be depicted in this way. It's, I think, standard UML notation. And there are other like sub-cases, sub-use cases, which they would identify graphically to writing as an include, or some other use case like alternative use case, alternative flow, which can be identified as extend. So this is like the general definition. And here I just put an example from where I'm working, some old project. There was a chatbot. So as you can see, like I would do a little bit more of color coding here, just to explain more information to the stakeholders. So I enhance that diagram. I would put here users. Here would be like big use cases. I put them in square just to like big epics, just to put the emphasis on that. Then it will go to more details, like another use cases, which includes here, and then more details, and so on. You can continue. So for this purpose, it was just to display to the stakeholders what is our scope, what we're going to handle in that for that chatbot in those years, right? So I will color code that, and there are different systems I crossed out, but there are like system 1, system 2, system 3, system 4, all they interacting across each other and contributing. So then that additional use case can be also broken down into like more functionalities. more like detailed use cases, right? For example, like view brief introduction about that's chatbot, open chatbot, ask question, answer to guided questions, whatever it is. And I think at that stage, the memorization will stop, will not like make it over complicated from graphical point of view, but then we will complement that with a description. And those are, I took the example, what we're doing, plus combine that with the BABOK, and I will just walk you through this. So description name of, you're just taking whatever is the, whether in the verb like open, chatbot, or whatever it is. Then goal, it's set in the BABOK goal, sometimes with problems, so it depends, like what is the solving. And then additional stuff which we would put is this business benefit and or ROI, right? In certain cases, we need to justify to our stakeholders that why we even doing this case. So to have it like in one place, for me, it works good, like to put that couple lines of benefit, whether it's a productivity or cost savings or anything else, right, which is defined by the product owner, by business. Then there is a precondition, meaning something should happen before that use case can be fulfilled. There's a primary actor and there is a secondary actor. If the, for some reason, primary is not doing that, there is some secondary actors available. Then here in the BABOK, it said it said, I think, guarantees or post conditions. To me, I understand that that's kind of a success criteria, or in the user story, you have acceptance criteria. So kind of we'll map this all together, because those basically the factors or the conditions which needs to be fulfilled when the use case is done, is carried out. So we would list down here the success criteria. Actually, that's how we call it. That's what actually how you identify that this use case is fulfilled. Another thing which complementary, not in the BABOK, is the current flow. Again, it's optional. Sometimes, like in certain cases, I would put couple of lines or even the flow how it is right now, to understand like what we're actually changing. And then there is basic flow, or target state, whatever you call it. It's the flow where you describe the regular normal flow, and then there are alternative flows, can be one or several. And another thing which I would complement is the business rules, because one of the drawbacks of use cases, they don't clearly define the business rules. Sometimes they in the flow, sometimes they like lost. So I would explicitly put the business rules, especially for our organization that we have a bunch of business rules. So I want to list them down. And that way we have kind of a comprehensive understanding. And we use, because we use Scrum and Agile, and use cases are more like from waterfall things. So we mixing them up just to complement one each other. And we would start from the use case as the higher thing, more high level, with all those description. And then the user stories can be even created per each success criteria, acceptance criteria, as a stories or as a subtasks, which will go into sprint, like 1 or 2 points story, small things which can be completed. Because in some case, most probably you won't be able to complete the whole use case during one sprint or even 2 sprints. So sometimes it's like that. That's how we're using it. So you can guys give a feedback and correct me if we're doing this right or wrong. But as I understood, there is no right or wrong way. It's like a method which you can utilize for your purposes. And I would like to switch to user stories. So we all know the user story is coming from extreme programming. It's very used in the Scrum process, despite, and this is the standard. There's no standard definition, standard way format of writing the user story, but like most of the people do, and everywhere in all trainings is explained that as an actor, I want, and you explaining the need, the business need, so that, and you explaining why you're actually doing this. And this is a very great compact form which you can put on the card and explain right away what's the user's what's the user requirement, what's the user wants, and user can be anyone, right? It's a good practice to put not as a user but as a customer, as the owner, as a developer, as a tech lead. It's, you know, whoever it is, to understand that, to look that from the stakeholder point of view, and then understand this why. This is why it's very important, because in use cases, it's nowhere stated like you have to explain why you're doing this. It's already assumed that everybody knows why we're doing this. But I think why is important for even single small functionality, because if you're creating too much functionality, but there's no clear why, you can create a lot of things which nobody will use. And another rule we're using, and like echoing this, it's leave how to the team, own the end, not the means. Meaning focus when you're a product owner or business analyst playing the role of product owner, you're creating a story, focus more on what and why, and how leave to the team, and create another point. Create that user story together with the team. That's very valuable, as per my experience, because you might know business from business view very clearly, but then the tech team will tell you about their non-functional requirements, which you might have missed. And once you will start analyzing, working with them, you'll understand, okay, that's a huge story. It should be broken down to several stories. So I would say the creation of the user story is a team effort. You can create as the Scrum Master or Product Owner BA, putting in the backlog, but then during the sprint planning or backlog refinement, actually, you would work with the team and try to break this down into something actionable, feasible, with clear acceptance criteria, and satisfying those criteria. That what makes a good story. It's independent, it's negotiable, valuable, estimable, small, and testable, right? And the acceptance criteria will guarantee you that it can be tested, and valuable, that's the why, where you would put why you need to do this. And another point wanted to call out, that provide just enough information for tech team to start development. Some people, there is always, you need to find that balance, like to put a lot of information or not to put. I mean, the rule of thumb we're using is to put just enough so that the dev team can start doing. You will not, you will have that room for their creativity, and you might not be needed. All those scenarios which you tried to put in, they might be not even valuable. Like by the time you develop and put this in production, that might be not important anymore. So that's like in Scrum, you're focusing on just enough, just right now, quickly finish it and deploy, and then take the feedback and adjust in the future. So that's it from my side. Do you have any questions, guys?
I have two things I'd like to add. And incidentally, you did a fantastic job. You obviously know your business. Use cases are something that I've used at the beginning of a development effort. And then if they're well written, you're able to pull those out into UAT testing instructions, so that it takes them through the process step by step. And occasionally during development, there'll be some alterations to those, but it gives you a good framework to start with. Also with user stories, whenever I have to write a whole series of user stories, I found that it helps me to do it in Excel in 3 columns. The I want, and so that, and I literally write them through just like test cases. I'm sorry, like use cases. I want this
Mhm.
to be able to happen, then I want this screen to do this thing, and I want this, and write the cases that way, and then use concatenate to pull them all together and just import them into Jira or whatever. It's the most complete way I've seen to be sure you're not missing steps, but still getting everything in. And you have your master list in Excel to be able to say, yes, this went into story number, whatever, and you can find it easily. That works really well if you have a very large number of user stories. Ilya,
Yep.
you did a fantastic job there.
Thank
How
you.
long have you been using use cases and user stories?
Sorry, can you say it again?
How many years have you been using
Oh,
these?
well, 5 years, I think, by now. But mostly I'm using user stories. Well, it's like, I would say we're using both, but because we're in like Scrum, it's like we're trying to be lightweight. But at the same time, I understand the value in that because in Scrum, what's missing in user stories is that it's hard to track them back. Like if you have a big system created through the user stories, it's like impossible. I mean, you have to, and then you need to change something. You're trying to find that user story. It's really hard. But that's why, like starting from high level and then drilling down and then have this all traceable back and forth from top to down, and yeah, that definitely helps. Yeah. Another question I have, yes.
Yes, go ahead.
So in your practice, you're doing both use cases and user stories, or are you picking up one of those?
Typically, we just do we typically do user stories only. We're trying to be agile, but there are times that you get a system that, nobody knows it, and they kind of need a framework of how it goes from one system to another, where the handoffs are, and use cases are a very effective way to walk people through that. Another way, if you don't want to do it in text, you can use a swim lane diagram to show the handoffs between this person does this, and then it goes to this system, and they do this, and then it goes to this system. But it's literally a graphical way of doing use cases.
Okay. So something like this, but in swim lane, basically diagram.
Yes,
right?
it's swim lanes, and typically I do it in a linear format that's kind of time-based, so that people can see what's happening when and how it relates to everything else. I've had very good luck with swim lanes. People have had the epiphany of, oh, I know what I'm supposed to do, but I didn't know how it fit into the whole process, because they've got this chunk here in the middle.
Yep.
But once they realize how important their work is, it helps them improve their job satisfaction. They speak up more. They're heard. Their expertise is put to use in the company. So I really like swim lane diagrams for that reason.
Yeah, that's what we actually even use more, like swim lanes or some process flow, data flow. So we would build that, and then we'll define system and then the flow, and then we will start working on the user stories or epics and then user stories. So use cases from time to time. That's why I'm interested how that's all used together. Like, isn't it like redundant to have both user stories and use
It is.
cases?
It very often, it's exactly the same information. It really depends on your audience. I've had very waterfall development groups that they wanted use cases. I've had people that were allergic to use cases. They only wanted user stories. Basically, it's the same information in different format, but user stories get, they're in small chunks. And so you kind of have to see how they flow. And that's why I use Excel to just keep everything basically a work breakdown structure.
Right.
Of
And some
the
people,
epics, the
right.
features, the epics, the stories. That way I can keep track of everything.
Yeah, and some people even call user stories use cases.
They do.
I had that
People get
confusion
confused.
too. They were
Yeah.
calling it.
I think that the format of as I want, so that is kind of the trademark to prove it's a user story. But you also need to understand the acceptance criteria as well as the goal and how to present it so the developer understands what you need.
Yep.
There were two
Very good.
things I wanted to say about use cases. One part is that it's just a small aspect of the UML technique. And that's a way to be thorough and look at the process from all different sides. So that's always important. And in your description, you also talked about something that's near and dear to my heart. I essentially always work from the point of view of a process model. So in any given individual process, you want to think CBAP, which is everything that's coming in, everything that's going out, and all the decisions that are happening within the process to affect what's going on, what condition it has, and characteristics, and which many alternative destinations it might go to. And that's all process modeling. You also talk about interface analysis a lot whenever you're handing off between users, between systems, between electronic systems. That's a whole science of communication, definition, checksums, verification, and so on. So those are all areas near and dear to my heart.
It's
Thanks.
good to have those things. Does anyone else have a question about user stories or use cases? Okay. Let's see, Bob, you had one more to present, right?
Well, I have two, but
Okay, we got time, I think. Sylvia, you doing okay?
Yes, I am. I
Okay.
don't have a lot of experience with the terminology, but I do understand some of the things that you're talking about. I think I
Okay.
called,
see,
sorry, go ahead.
can you see my brainstorming screen? Oh, wait.
No.
No, sir.
About
No, sir.
now?
We see you. Ah, now we see brainstorming.
All right, let me. Okay. So I've written about brainstorming in various oblique ways previously. And there's a list that goes to some of the articles and materials where I've touched on it. So what you're trying to accomplish with brainstorming in any instance is generating a lot of ideas, possibilities, combinations, and permutations in a relatively short period of time that address a given situation. I think most people think about applying that technique only for possible solutions or possible problems to solve, but really that applies anywhere in a process. So identify the steps if you're going to do something. that you work through as follows from beginning to end. You can use brainstorming in any one of those phases. Typically, you do it in the conceptual model, which is figuring out what's going on and design and implementation to some degree, and maybe requirements, but it applies just as much to data and test and acceptance and project planning, intended use, problem definition, everything. I am really big on trying to make analyses as thorough as possible. So brainstorming is really trying to get as many possibilities as you can all together. In theory, if you get enough different people with different eyes on the process or operation, with different experiences, they have different job titles, different needs, you'll see things from many different angles. So I would love that image there that shows that these things are, they are what they are, but they can look very different if you look at them from different angles. And I point out here in the article that every technique, business analysis, Scrum and Agile, Six Sigma, all of these, even project management, all of these are ways, kind of formalized ways or toolkits that help you see things from every angle in a given context. So they are approaches to brainstorm in a way that's thorough. I have to add a link into this article because I've written previously about being thorough, about really understanding what the limits and scope of your process is, because I've tried to figure things out, and because I didn't understand the full extent of a process, I utterly failed to solve a problem, and they had to bring somebody else in to help. And that's one of the worst things I think that ever happened in my career, that I couldn't figure it out and was just blind because I didn't know the whole process well enough. I had a case of tunnel vision. So knowing how to open up and ask, is this in my purview? Is that in my purview? And really examine the widest possible combination and permutation of things really helps with brainstorming. So if you have a problem where there's several different aspects, and every one of those aspects might have several different values, you'll want to examine those in every combination and permutation, and that might help you figure out what the best approach is. That's kind of an optimization problem on the one hand, but just listing all the possibilities and all the combinations really helps you think of things you might not have done before. And finally, if you think of a process as an equation, And here's an equation for pressure loss and flow through a pipe. Now, a lot of business problems aren't going to have something like this, but I'm a mechanical engineer, so I think of stuff like this. If you look at every driving variable, that's a part of what goes into achieving a certain result. And every one of those values can go up or down. And here we're talking on the right side of the equal sign, with the left side being the result, right? So there are many reasons potentially that every variable on the right side might change to grow larger or to grow smaller. And there's the whole concept of opportunity cost in economics and politics, especially. A lot of problems, a lot of analysis is really bad because people willfully ignore whole aspects of a problem. They'll just say, well, we have this problem. If we change this, we'll get this result. Well, what if it changes in the other direction? What if we vary some other variable? And they never talk about that. So yeah, this is another aspect of being thorough, and identifying these is an aspect of brainstorming. So again, brainstorming is really coming up with every possible factor you can identify that will affect your outcome. And that's basically it.
Thank you very much.
There, you're on mute.
I hit it, but I must have hit it twice. I'm so good at hitting buttons. Okay, what questions do we have for Bob? Bob, you're so good at explaining. We don't have any questions. That's awesome. Okay, we have 3 minutes left. Do we have any questions about anything else? Or is anybody got jobs that they want to promote or looking for jobs or anything like that? Okay.
Our company
I
is
think-
always looking, but just depends if you have the skill set.
Yeah, you have, what is it, Microsoft certifications?
Yeah, but we're always looking for BAs and PMs. So, and what, 90% of our stuff is all remote. So,
That's phenomenal. And what's the name of your company?
well, Power Objects, but
Or-
we're Microsoft partners. We work directly for almost, a lot of times I work directly for Microsoft, but it just depends.
Very cool. Okay, Power Objects. And you live in the Tampa area, but everybody is remote, so it really doesn't matter where you live.
Nope, because
Okay.
we're based out of Minneapolis. And nobody wants
Thank
to live up
goodness you
there.
don't live there. No.
Yeah,
Why
well,
would
not
you
this
live
time
there?
of year.
Wait, Bob, where was your dad's place at?
Pittsburgh, and this was the second coldest January I can remember.
Well, Pittsburgh and Minneapolis aren't side by side, but they're still far up there in the cold.
Minneapolis is way colder than Pittsburgh.
Okay, good to know. Good to know. I grew up in Texas, so everything is north. You know, it's like you northerners, everybody's northerners. Okay.
Question
We will-
for you. do we have more topics that people want to volunteer to tackle? Because I've done I have 3 more in the hopper.
Okay, well, let's see what we have left, and we'll take volunteers. Let's start at the top. We've got balanced scorecard, benchmark, and marketing analysis, and you did brainstorming. I'll put that on there. Today's 15th. Okay. Business capability analysis, business model canvas, business rule analysis, collaborative games. That's a fun one to do. Even somebody who doesn't have experience could do that one. Concept modeling, data dictionary, data flow diagrams, data mining, data modeling, decision analysis, decision modeling, document analysis, estimation. Anybody who's done project management probably knows estimation. Financial analysis, focus groups, functional decomposition, glossary. Anybody want anything on that page? I'll go to the next page.
Financial analysis.
Okay, let's see. Financial. Okay, got Bob there. Anybody else? Okay. Go down a little bit. Item tracking, lessons learned, metrics and key performance indicators, mind mapping, non-functional requirements analysis, organizational modeling, which is org charts, prioritization.
I claimed non-functional analysis last week. I'll have that one done.
Okay, you want to take that one now?
Sure.
Okay.
I can take prototyping.
Awesome.
Continue agile theme.
Very good. Okay. Reviews, risk analysis and management, roles and permissions matrix, root cause analysis, scope modeling, sequence diagrams, stakeholder lists, maps or personas, state modeling, survey or questionnaire, SWOT analysis. Well,
I can also take root cause analysis.
Okay, good one. Okay. Let's see, and vendor assessment and workshops. Sylvia, any of these of interest to you?
I don't think I'm quite ready for that.
Well, I tell you what, why don't you take collaborative games? Look at it and you let me know during the week if you're interested in it, okay? Because it's not specific to business analysis. It's more specific to team building.
Mm-hmm.
You're among friends here. You've been doing no wrong.
Yeah, I just been finishing up some things. Right.
Yeah, the 10.10 and 10.11, is that the section in the Babcock or BABOK? In the BABOK where that's at?
Yes,
It
that's
is.
exactly
Okay.
what that is.
So Sylvia, where the recordings are, and if you don't know that, just let me know.
On the drive?
Yeah, on the drive. There's also the BABOK, the full version 3
Yeah.
out there.
Yeah, I started reading it today. I went to Agile Seminar earlier today, but
Okay. I just wanted to let you know that it's out there so you
there's
can
a
use it as a
collaborative
reference.
thing
Yeah.
in there. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
it explains everything about it that you need to know to be able to talk about it. And then if you want to Google it or talk about your own experience, you can do that.
Okay.
This is not a high pressure sales thing. This is a,
Yes.
you know, no, I want you to feel like you're a part of it, not just listening.
Yeah, I just yeah.
Okay. We are at the end of our time. We've got some things to do next week. If y'all can invite a few other people to come with us and share our event. We're here to help everybody, and I know we're recording it, but the conversation that we have sometimes is the best part. Okay. All right, guys. See you next week. Same bat time, same bat station or channel, whatever. I
Thank
waved
you.
and I don't have my camera on. Waving.
See you.
Okay, guys.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.
See ya.
See you guys later.